Greetings, welcome back to the next stage of my little series on games that I've played. Tonight I will be touching on Warhammer 40k 6th and 7th editions. Where to start? 6th edition was for me the point where my interest in 40k really wavered. I think they kind of really, in my head I want to say they ballsed it up, but that's not quite what I mean. 5th edition, while nowhere near perfect, was a hell of a big improvement over 4th and was really playable, really enjoyable. 6th edition, when it came out, not so good, and I'm not really sure it was all that well received initially either. As a little tangent, when our local Games Workshop store in Cambridge first opened, I was in there almost every day. I was running games for them, demoing 40k, Rogue Trader, and when they had their big grand open day, I got a 6:30 a.m. bus over there, and there was already queues of people waiting to get in, and I was actually asked if I wanted to come through and help do things for the day, and obviously I jumped at the chance. That was a store opening, but Warhammer 40k, it was big, it was massive. On the release day for 6th edition, I did exactly the same thing. I stayed up all night, which is a bit of a mistake, and I got the 6:30 bus over there. I arrived in Cambridge just after 7, and there was no one there. In fact, the store didn't open till 10, and people only started to queue up behind me from about 9:30. Maybe it's just me, but any decently sized big edition, some big new fancy release, would have people out there waiting. So already you can kind of go, not quite as good as it's probably going to be. And I have to admit, I can't really say what didn't work, but 6th was a bit of a disappointment to me, if I'm honest. I think mechanically there was nothing so much wrong with it, but they made small changes that just didn't sit right. It's been so long ago now, and we're going back 3 and a bit editions to this point, so we had fun with it, and that's what matters. But it wasn't a fantastic system. One of the best things about it was they introduced what we would have called under 8th edition war zones, where you had specific planetary traits which affected the game. I remember 6th had things like Ice World, so the Get Hot rule where plasma weapons could blow up and kill their wielder didn't exist. Or you had an irradiated world where it triggered on a 1 or a 2 rather than just a 1. You had low gravity worlds where someone in it with a jump pack or a fly keyword actually moved faster. And I had these sort of created on an MTG card creator and shared out, and we actually used them for a good chunk of 6th edition. People were using these in their games, randomly determining them, or even deciding beforehand what matches they could effectively list build, whether to take plasma weapons or not, things like that. And it was really cool. But that's as far as good as 6th edition got for me. If you've seen other vids of mine over the years, you'll know I'm not a big fan of edition changes for the sake of it. And at least with 40k, it generally gets about 5 or 6 years for an edition. I don't even think 6th got 2 years in, and they changed and they released 7th. That to me is not a good sign that edition was going well. It was either a test bed for 7th, or they realised very early on that they ballsed it up. Anyway, 7th came out, and I was not happy, Bunny. I was rather burnt out from how poor I thought 6th edition was, and although I bought 7th edition and played it for a little bit, I didn't play it very much, and I ditched it. I didn't play for I'd say about 6 months. I still run the games club, but I didn't play 40k. And in the end, it was one of our guys, John, who basically said, look, they've got this really cool system mechanic in this, where they introduced what was called tactical objective cards. So instead of being a kill point mission or a hold objective mission, you had a deck of cards each, and you drew these cards, and it would tell you what you were going for. So you might have brought an army designed to hold objectives and kill from a distance, but you might draw cards that say go and get objective number 1, which sits in your opponent's deployment zone. You might get take down a flyer, or use a psychic power, and if you successfully did it, you put the card to one side, scored the points, and drew a new card to replace it, sort of thing. And I have to admit, that first game of 7th I had with John there, I'm going to say first, it was the first time I took it seriously, really brought me back into the game. Suddenly I'm like, this is where 40k has suddenly climbed back up in my expectations, whatever. You still had people that would try and go for a kill and table you, which really piddles me off a lot of the time, and was a big problem in the prior editions. And not everybody wanted to play tactical objectives. Some people find them wrongly so, that they take away the tactics, they take away your choice, how you want to play. They don't like the randomness of it, because the one deck, your deck might work really well for you, but your opponent's deck might be useless. It might start coming up with things that they have a really hard time achieving. But that's war. And one of the things that I've always said about a war game is that in the fact that it simulates a actual conflict, is that things will not go your way. You will be put in a position where you are at a disadvantage, and the whole point of playing it, and this is especially true with narrative style scenarios, where you have a set sort of story to that scenario. Maybe one person starts in the middle and is surrounded by the attacker and has to survive 5-6 turns, whatever. The whole point of a war game is to see what you can do given the situation in front of you. It tests your, let's call it a tactical skill, for lack of a better term. I know that's not perfect, but... And the tactical objective mechanic, the tactical objectives deck, I'm trying to think what they called it, Maelstrom of War, worked phenomenally well. I loved it, really did. And it really brought me back into the game, and thoroughly enjoyed it. 7th had its issues though. Basically you had, mechanical keywords up the wazoo. You had the introduction, or the proper introduction of Titanic units, things like Imperial Knights. And if your opponent wasn't ready for them, or wasn't expecting them, or hadn't prepared to face something that, you were often, you as a knight player, for example, would probably do very, very well, because this was a time when they still used armor values rather than a toughness for vehicles. And so, bolt guns were going to do sod all to a giant walking machine, which was bristling with super heavy weapons and things like this. So there were some balance issues. But again, if you take it as a bit of fun and just play and enjoy it, you did well with it. They did a really cool thing. I've been playing Marines all the way through. I played Salamanders under 6th edition, Salamander Space Marines, Chapter Space Marines, Melters and Flamers all the way, and I did terrible with them, really. I enjoyed painting them, because pretty much it was just slap the whole thing green, do some bits here and there, bish bash bosh. but they never really did what I wanted them. Again, in Space Marines in general, didn't do what I wanted them to do. I watched a game of, I'm sure it was 7th, with my friend Joel against somebody, and Joel plays a multitude of armies, but this particular night he was playing Chaos Demons, and he was summoning demons. You could summon things on this. I can't remember you could do it in 6th, but you could definitely do it in 7th. I think you could do it in 6th. And you could summon demons, or your psyker could be either pro summoning or anti summoning sort of thing. If I remember correctly, it is late. It has been a long day at work. I want to call one was Santic and one was something else. But anyway, and he was summoning units of demons. And I just had this thing in my head about, oh, I've got a new idea for an army. What if I played Chaos Space Marines and I summoned demons as support for said army? And the cogs started turning, and I'm thinking, well, which traitor legion or which warband do I like? And I started looking at Death Guard. I like Nurgle as a chaos god. I can envision more interesting events or situations on the table, or stories involving Death Guard and Plague Marines and how Nurgle operates. The other Chaos Gods are very, very boring to me. Very Khorne especially. Bloodshed, slaughter, kill, maim, burn. Oh yeah, done it. Been there. Bye. But Nurgle and the Death Guard and Plague Marines really sort of stressed. And I started doing this. And of course, they released a really phenomenal book. They released Traitor Legions for 7th, which gave you rules for playing all the main Traitor Legions. And it was phenomenal. Suddenly I had Death Guard, I had Helldrakes, I could take Death Guard on, I could take Death Guard bikers who had really good toughness, and all this, and they really, really made them playable. Not broken, but playable. Whereas Chaos Marines had been really good if you went like the Khorne approach and tried to kill things, or Slaanesh being really fast, and Tzeentch being majorly overpowered on psychics. And psychic powers are one of the things that really used to annoy me a lot under 6th and 7th, especially Eldari or Tyranids. Their psychic powers just irritated me to no end. And I had a really cool Death Guard army. I expanded it a fair bit. I even got a Chaos Knight. And then 8th went and kind of scuppered that by saying half these things that you've now gone out and bought over the last few years since we released Traitor Legions are now completely useless. But that's a topic for when I get to 8th. 7th edition for me was an improvement up from 6th, but it had a lot of issues. There was a lot of things were overpowered. Psychic, I say, was one of them. Super heavy vehicles was another. So I think 6th and 7th editions were kind of as I say, they were a bit of a slump for me for 40k and Games Workshop. I don't really know why they did what they did with these editions, whether they were just trying new things out and it didn't quite work very well. But whereas 6th to me is completely forgettable, 7th with things like the tactical objective cards, Maelstrom of War, whatever it's called, really, really worked for me. It brought my enthusiasm for the game back up again. And so there. Not really sure what else I can say about it for that, other than the fact that, if it wasn't for John trying to get me to try 7th after that break, I probably wouldn't have come back, or at least not until probably 8th edition came out. So big thank you, John. Anyway, I'd like to know what your experiences were with 6th or 7th. Did you like them? Did you not like them? Do you share my sort of views on how good or bad they were? Pop such things down in the comments. We'll start a discussion. If you enjoyed the content, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Helps the channel. And I look forward to seeing your comments and seeing you guys in the next video. Right, thanks for watching. Take care, guys, and good gaming.